for peace, and not because of their tribal or their religion or whatsoever background.
Da zaman lafiya da kwanciyar hankali a cikin ƙasar Najeriya.
Let us support the government of the day to embrace peace in our nation.
Your Nigeria, our Nigeria, my Nigeria.
This message is brought to you by the Ambassador of Voice for Change Initiative, supported by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, and the Federal Capital Territory.
You want to talk about rights? There are obligations. I'm not saying that this government is a saint, it's very far from it. But there are things that we can do to make it better, and that's the challenge I'm throwing to you. You don't want to build this nation? I don't know where else you want to go. If I had a choice, I'll come back. When I stand outside and I hear what you have to say about this country that I know that I can die for as one, then I'm really sad because you're young. You have education. You have tools. You have a huge future ahead of you. And you're condemning yourself before you started on that journey. So please don't do that. Please don't.
This is the network service of the NTA.
Well, I think that the best way to describe the Buhari effect is to understand the man himself, appreciate his connection with simple things and with the most vulnerable members of our society. It is also to understand his background, his education, and his training. When you go back to his previous enterprise in government, whether as a much younger officer, as GOC, or as military governor, or as minister for petroleum, or as chairman of the Petroleum Trust Fund, you will understand what the man is all about. He got some important things done, and they're well documented, whether it was the construction of some of Nigeria's major refineries or some of Nigeria's biggest power plants like Jeba, which he commissioned, I think, in 1985, and for which there was no maintenance again until I became Minister of Power. And some of the roads, the schools, the hospital facilities that he led the Petroleum Trust Fund to intervene in the early 1990s. Some of them have received no attention until he returned again as president in 2015. Because what he tells me and some of my colleagues who are involved in infrastructure, he said, look, ministers, if we fix Nigeria's roads, fix Nigeria's rail, rebuild Nigeria's ports, sea and airports, fix Nigeria's electricity, and fix agriculture and secure the nation, Nigerians will get on with their lives. In a sense, that is what he has embarked upon doing through his delegated authority to different ministries, mine included, in spite of the limited resources.
With intervention of over 13,000 kilometers of roads, 30 bridges, 41 tertiary institutions, and 25 federal secretariats, among others, there is no better evidence of the Buhari effect than in the works sector. Before Buhari, road projects were stalled, abandoned, or, in extreme cases, never commenced at all.
At the time when the price of oil is about half what it was in 2009, 2010, 2011, we have over 800 road contracts across Nigeria. We are impacting on 13,000 plus kilometers of Nigeria's road. We are repairing, restoring, maintaining over 30 bridges nationwide. We are intervening in the internal road network of 41 tertiary educational institutions. We are managing rehabilitation and maintenance of 25 federal secretariats where there was no maintenance in the last 20 years or more. We want to improve the human condition. Every one of those projects is a legacy for the communities where it is impacting. Some of the most difficult projects that seem to have defied the effort of all previous administrations, at least in this democratic dispensation, are now underway and making progress. One of them, Apapa Oworoshoki Expressway, now almost completely rebuilt with concrete after first being built 1975, over 40 years ago. All the efforts to rehabilitate have almost all too soon collapsed. Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, since 1999, was a front burner issue. Hardly anything worthy of note took place there until 2016, Buhari era. Now, out of 127 kilometers, over 80 kilometers is completed. Second Niger Bridge, an east-west crossing linking the southeast to the south-south through Asaba, Benin, and to the southwest. The story of many election campaign promises, but nothing happened. Now the superstructure is visible to everybody. The story now is, when will it be finished? The Buhari effect. Bodo-Boni Bridge, awarded I think early in the 70s. First contractor failed, abandoned the site. Second contractor failed, abandoned the site. Now the contractor is there, Julius Berger, building. The first bridge has been completed. Several kilometers of road have been completed in the Buhari era. This is the Buhari effect across Nigeria. We're doing very heavy lifting at a very difficult time, but we're doing it with pride because the president has given us his support. So in spite of the paucity of resources from oil, we're using the Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund to fund Abuja, Kano, Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, Second Niger Bridge, and that is the Buhari effect. Creative funding. The Sukuk, when he started, some said, oh, it was an attempt to Islamize Nigeria. But whether you are in the east or in the south or in the north, all the roads cut across 6 geopolitical zones, 44 roads now benefiting from the Sukuk. So that is another example of the Buhari effect. Road infrastructure tax credit, so the Oworoshoki Expressway, the Obajana Kaba Road, the Bodo-Boni is the beneficiary of that initiative. That is part of the Buhari effect. We started the Abuja Kano Expressway as a rehabilitation, but we found out that some of the assessments at the time the project was conceived required a total reconstruction. So the contract price has changed, the scope of work has changed. It's a 375 kilometer road being constructed simultaneously in 3 sections. Abuja to Kaduna, 165 kilometers. Kaduna to Zaria, 78 kilometers. Then Zaria to Kano, which is a little over 100 kilometers. The local Oweto Bridge over the river Benue is a north-south crossing, linking the north to the south through Benue into Abuja. Access to many parts of the south, especially the south-south, through Benue, Katsina, Ala, across river Kwaibo, and if you're coming through the north, Nasarawa, and it cuts off about 4 hours of travel time. So all of the bridge is done. The link road from Benue onto the bridge is also finished. It is the link road on the Nasarawa side that still has about 35-40 kilometers out of 60-something to finish. It is open to traffic now. We pushed it, so Buhari effect. If you look at the Lawrence-Jeba, the 100 and something kilometer journey used to take 4 days. One of the roads we attacked very quickly is now about 60 minutes. 70 minutes, traverse the Lawrence-Jeba. Now we're extending to Mokwa. If you look at the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, people used to sleep on that road. People used to sleep on the Benin or Shagamu road. All that is now in the past, except when you have non-compliant behavior and people drive against traffic. But it's not because the road just gave way.
In February 2020, when the index case of COVID-19 came into Nigeria, the projections were dire. No one would have believed, with the number of COVID-related deaths in first world countries, that as at 26 May 2021, Nigeria would experience 2,071 deaths from 166,098 confirmed cases, with 7,499 cases still active.
COVID came just like a thunderbolt hitting the entire world, and nobody was ready. Well, we thank God that our figures are not frightening. Contrary to the predictions, even the WHO, the international bodies, their projection was that we will probably just be picking bodies on the streets of Nigeria. But thank God, we didn't have that kind of situation, and we still don't have it, and we will not have it. Even the international bodies, particularly the WHO, has commended Nigeria for our modest efforts. And what did we do? You will recall that even some of the things that we did, some of the countries of the first world, so to speak, advanced countries, didn't even do that we did right from the word go. When China, where the first outbreak started, it was like we were anticipatory. When will this thing come to us? And then the thing started spreading and all that. And then we had our own first case, which was an Italian that came into Lagos, and that was on the 27th of February. And then Lagos had experience with Ebola. So Lagos could easily draw from that experience in terms of contact tracing. All those who were passengers on that flight were traced. And of course, the case itself, called the index case, followed up quickly, isolated and all that. By 9th of March, President Muhammadu Buhari, I want to really commend the leadership for quickly putting in place what used to be known as Presidential Task Force, the PTF, which is a kind of multi-sectorial body. So many ministries, departments, and agencies were involved. What did we do first? We set up pillars under which the response activities will be managed. There are 7 pillars. The first pillar is surveillance, which has to do with finding the cases. The second one, the point of entry. Don't forget that the first case was imported, because the point of entry pillar will now manage the entry points, the airport, particularly the international entry port, air, land, water. Then the third pillar is laboratory, because we needed to do testing. The thing with COVID is that you could have someone there not manifesting symptoms and yet carrying the virus. So there was need to have that laboratory that will do the testing. Then the fourth pillar is the case management. But in case management, you also have to bring in what we call the infection prevention and control, IPC, part of that fourth pillar. The fifth pillar is logistics. Has to do with getting the consumables needed, the drugs, reagents, and all that. The sixth pillar has to do with risk communication. That is, we need to let people know what risk they face. And this is where the issues of non-pharmaceutical intervention comes in. And they need to let people know that this is not the time to congregate. This is not the time to go visiting. This is not the time to embark on journeys that are not really compulsory or necessary. So all those risks, and then the things to do, all this washing of hands and all that. And then the last pillar is coordination. In terms of setting up what we call EOCs, that is Emergency Operation Centers in the states, so that as soon as any case is detected, they just do what they need to do, testing or isolation. Part of that seventh pillar of coordination is the need to quickly activate rapid response teams. As soon as you have the signal that something is happening or there is a suspicion, that rapid response team goes there to assist the state. Don't forget, the PTF itself is a body to mobilize resources, both local and international. The role played by the private sector must be commended under COVID. Part of PTF's assignment too was to coordinate activities between the central government and the subnational units, the states and the local governments, to ensure that we're all on the same page, because the approach in this response activities, essentially, we call it all of government and all of society. And if you're talking of all of government, we have 3 levels: the local government, the state, and the federal. And of course, we are also collaborating with religious bodies, particularly in the area of risk communication, the civil society organizations, community leaders, and all that. Within this concept, government all of society. And of course, we started setting up isolation centers, intensive care units, laboratories. And I must commend President Muhammadu Buhari for making the funds available. And the National Assembly, because we had what you can call emergency appropriation or supplementary budget, which the National Assembly wasted no time in approving. We are doing daily briefing so that the people can know what is happening and what their own expected rules are. We put in place restrictions, lockdown, and we were in touch with the governors through the Nigerian Governors Forum. By the time we were putting certain restrictions in place, some of the very developed countries were not even doing the things we were doing. And with all due sense of modesty, we received commendation for the things we did right from the word go. We say, thank God for where we are. But it is not over. It is not over until it is over. Because we don't want people to start feeling that, oh, we're not out of the woods, and we should not let down our guards. None of us is safe until every other person is safe.
If there's anywhere the Buhari effect is more visible than ever, it is in the overhaul of the railways. The Nigerian Railway Corporation, at over 113 years old, is the oldest form of transportation in Nigeria.
Before 2016, I've worked here for over 30 years. I took the position since October 2016. We had only operation on the narrow gauge from Port Harcourt to Gombe, Lagos to Kano, and we are moving goods and passengers. We have a train running from Lagos to Kano and Lagos to Offa. And all these trains are made up of 88 coaches, and we have running 16 trains within Lagos a day, and also made up of 10 coaches. When I came in as the managing director, the standard gauge between Abuja and Kaduna was on, but not moving as fast as expected. Immediately, the president government came in and ensured that between 2015 and 2016, it came into operation. At Kubwa, where we had the major issue, the hospital that was blocking the route of the track, eventually settled it. They were relocated, track was finished, and the train started operation. We had wagons moving containers from port to Kaduna dry port. The modernization took the uppermost part of the government. They were willing to ensure that the modern tracks are expanded while we keep the narrow gauge running. It's not by magic that since we started Abuja Kaduna, it has been on to date without stop. And maybe we have 2 incidents of failure. It's just because of the support we have received from the government and the willingness and the staff seeing the way the government have taken developing the rail and modernizing the system as very important to the Nigerian well-being. The Itakpe worry was there close to 34 years now, and the government also looked at it, dusted it up, and ensured it's in operation. Today, I can say it's the darling of the Railway Corporation. We thought there would not be service because most of the line were not on the route where you have many people. But as of today, right from Warri, the trains are already fully filled up and booked. However, the minister just directed that we should move another rig, making it another 10 set of train. And not only running passengers, we started moving goods. We are supporting the AKK project by moving 16 wagons almost on a daily basis. That's 32 trailers off the road. We are also sending about 24 new wagons and 2 locomotives there because the AKK project requires a lot of pipes, and the pipes are already at the seaport, and they are moving them in order to support government and ensure that the AKK project comes to fruition as a time. So we are also deploying more wagons to ensure it's running. Then the Lagos-Ibadan came in by this government. They flagged it off, and it has never happened that within 2 years that a length of double track of 156 between Ebutimeta Lagos to Ibadan in Moniya, an extension of about 16 kilometers to the port with their sidings and loop line can be finished without that speed. It's on record that we started operating on those skeleton, one service a train. The strategic vision of the government and to see that thing work, they ordered about 280 wagons and about 64 coaches to ensure that we service the standard gauge line. Within that period, we received some narrow gauge rolling stock. Recently, we also ordered the power cars that will provide electricity for the narrow gauge. They didn't just say, okay, we are only doing modernization. They are also providing the resources, both in the workshops and to ensure that the old and the modern run together. We cannot just say because we are doing a modern track, we cannot do all at the same time. It has to be from stage to stage. As a result, they have made some provisions for us to ensure that the Lagos-Ibadan, Port Harcourt, Aba, and furthermore to Enugu continue to run. We will run freights and passengers on them. We will also be emphasizing of using the port, using the rail. We have issue there, and we are trying to resolve it. For the modernization stage, the contract for Ibadan to Kano has also been awarded. We are at the final stage of the acquisition of the right of way. The government has also made sure that they made some payment on the counterpart funding. Just are waiting for the Chinese Exim Bank to make do with their own. Same also with the Calabar to Lagos, Port Harcourt to Maduguri. Since the fund is not quite there, the government also look backward and say, okay, while we are doing Lagos to Kano on the narrow gauge, we should also do something from Port Harcourt to Maduguri and the branch line to Kaduna, so that ensure that while the narrow gauge is operating, the modernization process on both on the Eastern Corridor and Western Corridor comes to The government have decided to ensure that people are properly trained. About 150 Nigerians between the ages of 18 and 20. We are sent to China to various polytechnics and universities to understudy the system to PhD level. Those who want to stop at master or first degree or higher national diploma will get it and come back home and become the trainer. Those that have acquired enough education will be deployed to the University of Transportation in Daura. Other rolling stock, coaches, wagon, and locomotive. There is also an agreement that the company will build an assembly plant at Kajola. They are building the workshops, and some of the wagons will be supplied fully completed, while some will be at the knockdown stage to be assembled, so that our people will learn and understudy the process of manufacturing locomotives. The beauty of the Buhari administration is that what we are doing now is not just solely for our immediate benefit, for your children and your children's children. If all this line are functioning, is to ensure that it's serviced and maintain them. The transparent nature of Buhari and that effect cannot be overemphasized, because everybody look at railway as the major infrastructure that is being developed vigorously by this government. While we are trying our best, we are not there yet, but we have the hope and believe that we will get there sooner than expected. We have a lot of challenges that will lead people to start vandalizing government property. The infrastructure that they are putting in place, not because of them. It's not because Buhari want to ride train from Lagos to Ibadan, we want to ride from Lagos to Kano, but for the majority of us. So we should guide it as our personal thing. No use going to vandalize the track, because when you vandalize the track, it's still going to cost government money to repair it, and that money would have been used for other things. Our security men should ensure that the tracks are safe, and that this daily vandalization we experience on our track should stop. I don't remember how many times President Buhari have gone on the train to Abuja, from Abuja to Ghana, from Lagos to Ibadan, from Itakpe to Warri, but it's the populace. But he's struggling to ensure that these things in place, so that the tired Nigerian populace will see the benefit of having not just rail infrastructure, but other infrastructure that they are struggling to put in place. And we pray that the next government coming should learn from him and continue with the way Mr. President Buhari is doing. He has shown us that government will continue, that once you meet a project and you look at it, it's going to benefit the people, you should continue. That idea is not negotiable. They should try so that Nigerians will be better for everyone.
As of the year 2014, Nigeria's imports of rice, fish, wheat and sugar amounted to about 1.3 trillion naira worth of foreign exchange from the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN. With three major staple food security crops, maize, cassava, rice, and Nigeria's over-reliance on crude oil earnings undermining the CBN's ability to attain macroeconomic stability in times of low oil prices, the pressure of food imports on the naira was unprecedented. Therefore, diversification of the economy through agriculture also meant that Nigeria would depend on herself to ensure food security. So, on November 17, 2015, when President Muhammadu Buhari launched the Anchor Boras program in Kebbi State, situated in Nigeria's northwest geopolitical zone, many were skeptical. Some Nigerians thought that the CBN should be focusing on monetary policy rather than crop cultivation. They didn't know of and were not ready for the Buhari effect. President Buhari knew that Nigeria's annual consumption of over 7 million tons of rice far exceeded her production capacity. In 2015 alone, 3 million tons of rice were imported through Nigeria's former ports and other informal cross-border channels. Furthermore, Nigeria's imports of rice from Thailand, India, and the USA amounted to about $5 million per day. With the Anchor Borrowers Program (ABP), Nigeria's rice output in 2019 saw a 60% increase from 2013 to 4.9 million tons. Today, the Buhari effect has seen Nigeria move from the world's largest importer to the largest producer of rice in Africa, with the return of visible rice pyramids. Under the ABP, over 700 billion naira has been disbursed to farmers across Nigeria for over 21 crops, including oil, palm, and cocoa. It is the success of the program that has enabled the massive rice pyramids Nigerians see unveiled in Kebbi, Jigawa, Sokoto, Niger, Kwara, Ebonyi, and Ekiti states, with rice harvested from the various states and rice farmers involved in the Anchor Borrowers Program (ABP). Over 300 billion naira has also been disbursed by the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN) to companies in southern Nigeria, Lagos, Edo, Ondo, Osun, Ogun, Ekiti, Bayelsa, Rivers, and Cross River states. Altogether, from the inception of the program in 2015, 3,107,890 farmers have been financed to cultivate 3,801,397 hectares across 21 crops through 23 participating institutions in the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory, FCT. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, and the United Nations Organization on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, between 2017 and 2019, over 14 million Nigerians were on some form of drugs. As the father of the nation, it was only right, therefore, that President Buhari resume his focus on drug law enforcement, a sector that he had focused on years ago when he was military head of state. It was familiar territory for President Buhari.
When I took over the NDLEA, we've been able to seize drugs over 2 million kilograms worth over 100 billion naira. That is significant money if you consider what it would have done if it were entered the hands of all these criminals and criminal organizations. We've been able to jail 1,600 within this period and arrested over 8,000, and we are still working. Drug use in Nigeria has reached the level that is destroying our families, communities, and unless it is tackled with all the seriousness that it deserves, the nation will be doomed. It is for this reason that under the mandate of His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, the NDLEA is upstanding to make sure that we deny both the users and traffickers access to drugs of all forms. This year, June 26, United Nations International Day Against Drug Abuse and Trafficking, Mr. President launched WADA, War Against Drug Abuse, WADA. And the purpose of WADA is to mobilize Nigerians towards preventing the use of drugs, stopping trafficking, destruction of cultivated lands like cannabis and so on, treatment and rehabilitation of those who are using drugs. The NDLEA within our statutes has the power to seize property that we find drugs. So this is a strong message to landlords that if you are not careful, you will lose your property and ultimately to be auctioned away. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . .
The first major effect of the Buhari administration was primarily the setting up of the Presidential Advisory Committee for the Elimination of Drug Abuse, PASEDA. That shows the commitment and the determination of the federal government under President Buhari to actually tackle headlong the problem of drug abuse in the country. For years now, the nation has been contending with security challenges. Over time, it's come to the fore that at the basis behind some of these security challenges is the problem of drug abuse. And coincidentally, the current chairman, chief executive of NDLA, General Mohammed Buba Marwa, was appointed the chairman of PASEDA then, along with some other eminent Nigerians, to come up with strategies on how to fight the problem of drug abuse in the country. I have heard General Marwa say that what he is doing is as a result of the president's mandate, but with the new leadership, there is a renewed fight, and that's what you call the Buhari effect on the fight against drug abuse and trafficking. Now, talking administratively, you're talking about a total restructuring of the agency, creating new directorates and also motivating the workforce. It's coming to operations. Here, you would have been reading about a number of seizures, arrests, raids, and conviction coming out of court trials. As at today, the NDLA has been able to seize drugs worth over 90 billion naira and reduce access to over 2 million kilograms of drugs and destroying hectares of cannabis farms. We've been able to file over 2,000 cases in court and over 500 convictions within about 4 months. In addition, we have more than 1,500 other cases going on in court. Just recently, the president, according to the National Security Advisor, commended the NDLA under Buba Marwa for the great feats being able to achieve within a very short time. Today, the agency is taking the fight according to the directive of the chairman after cartels and barons. Within a very short time, you've seen the arrest of quite a number of barons as well as traffickers. The Buhari effect is really impacting positively on the work of the agency. With the setting up of PASEDA, you could see a deliberate federal action against drug abuse and trafficking in the country. That's a major Buhari effect because the last research conducted by the National Bureau of Statistics with the support of United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, between 2017 and 2019, 14.3 million Nigerians abused drugs, about 3 times the global prevalence rate. By 2050, we'll be having about 30 million Nigerians abusing drugs. Ultimately, we all turn out to